And we're back. Welcome to another episode of the Bandit Room. My name is Charles, and I'm joined here in the studio today by Mr. Caleb.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. And our special guest today, Mr. James Cogar. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me, fellas.
I don't know if we can call James a special guest after 3 appearances.
That's true. 3 appearances. You're a veteran. You're you're in the 3-timer club.
The only member of the 3-timer club.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah. You're coming
Feels
back.
special.
You're a favorite of the show. Notably absent is our colleague, Mr. Agie. Any guesses as to where he might be, James?
Airborne, perhaps? I don't know.
Airborne? That's a good guess. Can't give away his location, but we can confirm with him next week and see if he's airborne.
That's right.
So we thought we might continue the ongoing segment that we've had with you regarding our 2 in-house film critics here, you and Caleb. You've had some previous discussions, put it nicely, a couple of arguments about Hitchcock over some time. And Caleb, has your mind changed on Hitchcock? Have you seen the light?
Well, so I finally got around to watching some more movies. Well, Strangers on a Train. So I finally watched that one, which is one that I actually liked.
Yeah.
So I was like, I figured we could talk about it. I still have problems with this movie, but I like it. Okay, so Strangers on a Train. Spoilers for a very old movie already.
Spoiler alert. Don't ruin it.
Spoiler for
70-year-old.
2 gentlemen meet on a train by chance. One of them sort of unhinged and suggests that they trade murders. Each character has somebody in their life that they would be better off without. It would benefit them to not have them in their life. And so because they're complete strangers, he thinks it's a great idea if they trade murders. The unhinged guy who suggests this carries through, while the other guy's sort of like, yeah, whatever, that was a joke, and goes on with his life. And then he comes back and goes, see, look what I did for you. Now it's your turn.
Gotcha.
And so the plot kind of spins out of control from there.
Well, it's an intriguing story. You've got me already. This sounds like a good story. I mean, it's sort of like it could almost be like a biblical parable or something like that. It's sort of it's such a strong concept.
Yeah. It's almost outlandish. Like, there's even a line in the film where somebody says something like, it's just too fantastic when he explains what's happening. And it's like, it almost is, but also it's sort
believable enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. For that film to be a success, one of the characters has to be unhinged. Because 2 people could have that conversation and then go on about their day. It's the fact that this guy's crazy enough to actually just go do it. Yeah, and like you said, it sets everything else in motion, and it does spin out of control. And
James, some of the things that I have issues with Hitchcock, to recap a little bit, a lot of his movies tend to end very, very abruptly with not very much resolution. Like, I don't feel very satisfied sometimes. And then there's often a lot of like exposition within the movie of having to explain the plot to you. This movie had both of those things in it, but they didn't bother me this time, which I thought was interesting. And then,
why do you think it didn't bother you?
I don't know.
You were willing to forgive it, whereas you weren't so likely to forgive it when you've seen it in other movies that you've watched by him. Yeah,
and I think it might be that the ending on this one felt like it justified it, maybe. Like, it all leads up to this 70-year-old, spoilers here, but it leads up to the 2 main characters sort of fighting on this out-of-control merry-go-round in this very intense scene that's like very well put together. And to James, I think James, your point the last time was Hitchcock keeps giving you more tension and more suspense until you think you can't handle anymore, and then he gives you a little bit more, and this one absolutely did that for me.
So you were so caught up in the journey that you didn't stop and analyze the film techniques. Is that would you say that's fair?
I got less caught up in them. Yeah.
Because if it's a slow story, then you have nothing else but to sit around and criticize the mechanics of it.
Right.
But if it's the story's gripping you the whole time, you don't really think about it. Is that one of your favorites, James?
Yeah, it is. And that film in particular, I mean, the story is intriguing. The title says it. I mean, these guys meet by chance, and, a little bond is formed. One guy I felt like was talking, wouldn't it be neat if we could do this, where the other guy's like, yeah, I'm in, and he goes ahead and acts. The consequences then are what you're left to deal with. And it's it's tense, and it's riveting. And yeah, I think you're right. I think it builds and builds and builds, and then you can't take it, and then they give you a little more, and he finally lets you off the hook. Yeah. The ending does happen kind of abruptly, but films in the 40s and 50s, they did that. They didn't wrap things up in a nice, neat bow for us like they do these days. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm glad you really liked it, though. In all honesty, I was, if you had kept watching Hitchcock films and just kept going, that would have kind of been a bummer for me, because we found so much common ground. Talking about other filmmakers and other actors and directors, but you were just never catching on with the Hitchcock stuff. But I'm glad you finally enjoyed that one. It's one better.
Yeah, it was even the abrupt ending. I think like it had one point to it, like the one thing it was trying to accomplish. It accomplished that thing, and then boom, it's over.
And they got out.
I think the other ones have that same sort of thing going on. The other Hitchcock movies that I've seen, but they don't feel satisfying, whereas this one did. Yeah, so it's funny because we've been talking more about movies off the record, off the podcast, and nearly every other director, every other thing that we talk about, we agree on.
Oh, interesting.
Like Paul Thomas Anderson, we've talked about a bunch.
Just right down the line. I mean, Spielberg, Tom Hanks, all the guys from today, Scorsese. We're pretty much in line. And then if you get the Hitchcock, and we had this Y in the road, it was weird. But I'm glad you liked that one. Not long ago, like a month ago, I caught the tail end, like say the last third of North by Northwest, and I hadn't seen it. I still haven't seen its entirety in about 10 years. But I just all of a sudden I was gripped, and I sat down, and I couldn't leave the room. I don't know if it would affect you like that, but it does have that same type of abrupt ending. Come on, Mrs. Thornhill, or whatever. But yeah, it's just really, they do end that way with Hitchcock. They do that.
If you could recast it today with modern actors,
that's a good question.
I would recreate Steve Martin, John Candy, Strangers on a Train. Strangers on trains, planes, and automobiles.
I like that.
That might actually work. I don't know. Do you have any ideas off the top of your head, James?
For the Farley Granger character, I don't know, somebody young and athletic looking, Gyllenhaal maybe, for the Farley Granger, the tennis pro.
Oh, okay. So in the movie, that's the normal kind of
normal guy.
His name is Guy.
The kind of normal guy. I thought maybe Gyllenhaal.
Unhinged guy is named Bruno.
Who could play the unhinged character? There's probably a lot of guys who could play that.
I always enjoy Paul Dano in his sort of unhinged
bad guy.
He's Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, you're just picking Batman villains now. It all comes back to Batman.
I don't know. I think we could make a heck of a movie like that.
Yeah.
Jim, is there a particular director or actor type of film that you believe is overrated and you do not appreciate? Because we've got into Caleb's, what he's not crazy about. Do you have one?
No, the guy that gets me, who's the guy that makes all the films with Johnny Depp? He did the one where
Tim Burton.
Yeah,
Tim Burton.
I swear, I know the man's talented, but I typically just don't get it. I'm not an Edward Scissorhands guy. I struggle with some of that stuff. Tim Burton's probably the one that, I know it's talented, but hard for me to watch.
Would you say it's the visual aesthetic of how he always tells his movies? I mean, they always feel like a Halloween movie.
They always feel like Halloween. That's what I was going to say. They always feel so over the top to me that I'm like, wow, did we have to go quite that far? But the man makes money. He keeps something moving.
He does. I think he made a few departures from his typical style. I don't know. Like I'm not a huge fan of the way he puts them together, but I did think he did well with Alice in Wonderland, the recent one that he did with that. But
you enjoyed that?
Doesn't have that same. It didn't feel like the Demon Barber of Fleet Street or anything like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Curious. I'm sure you've seen this one, but what do you make of his original 1989 Batman movie?
Well, I actually we go all the way back to 19. Had Jack Nicholson in it?
Yeah.
That's the Jack Nicholson. Gotcha.
Yeah. I'll tell you how much I was anticipating it. I took a night off from work to go see it on opening day. Yeah, so I was very excited about it. And I didn't miss work in those days. That was that was food money and rent money. I didn't have much.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed that film. I've always loved Nicholson, and I thought that was pretty well done. Some of the other Batmans have been really good too, but I enjoyed that one. I thought that was a really good place to start.
Yeah, and I think the Tim Burton aesthetic is still there, but it's kind of more muted underneath the kind of comic book Gotham aesthetic, so it kind of works.
And you get that dark, brooding character anyway with Batman, so Tim Burton was a good choice for that, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I did watch Blonde, although that is not Hitchcockian.
It feels like it could be, right?
Well, I will tell you, at the pace that it crawled along at, I was glad I came before I watched it, is all I know. Yeah, I thought the story was actually pretty good, but I thought the pacing of it was brutal. I thought, oh my gosh, we need to move poor Marilyn along here.
So Blonde is a movie about Marilyn Monroe that just came out this couple weeks ago recently. Yeah. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's long.
Something like that.
Sounds right. Yeah, it's interesting. Were you a fan of Marilyn Monroe films, Jim?
I've only seen a couple. I saw The Misfits, and I saw Some Like It Hot. And gotcha. Some Like It Hot was, really, really good.
It's been well received.
Yeah, and she's a better actress than I would have given her credit for, based on the persona that I saw with her singing "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" and all that, all that craziness. But I thought she was pretty good, and she was definitely troubled though. Although Blonde is a fictional adaptation of, a novel written from, about her life, but it was, there was enough in there that was Marilyn-esque that made it feel okay.
Yeah, with the film, it kind of felt like it was pretty much almost exclusively things that you couldn't absolutely verify. It was never like her public stuff, other than like the 7-year itch pose or whatever, like things that happened. So much of it was sort of the behind closed doors Marilyn that not really anybody got to see except someone who may have really known her. I believe, Caleb, you had noted some criticism of the film in the Times.
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but it's been pretty controversial. On a lot of people are kind of upset about it, and this kind of sums up what people are upset about. This is from the New York Times. It says, given all the indignities and horrors that Marilyn Monroe endured during her 36 years, it's a relief that she doesn't have to suffer through the vulgarities of Blonde, the latest necrophiliac entertainment to exploit her.
Necrophiliac entertainment to exploit
point being,
wow.
there's a lot of, from what I understand, a lot of nudity, a lot of graphic content going on in the movie,
which is very interesting, and that the writer brings up a good point of the irony of that the whole movie casts her very much as a victim of her environment, and really does dwell on a lot of those issues. To also point out that this is rather exploitative, the image of Marilyn in general. It's intriguing. I do think it tells a bigger story than that, though. I think there were some kernels of casting her in a better light than the review suggests.
For instance, like Norma Jean, honestly, really seemed, at least in this film, like a really nice girl, and she wanted Marilyn to just be on the screen. She didn't want it to be. Yeah,
they really do a good job. Norma Jean being the given name of the actress who changed her name to Marilyn Monroe. They really did a good job making that seem like almost a double personality situation, where Marilyn was the character and Norma Jean was the real person, which maybe there was something to that. Maybe that's why she was a really good actor, because she was playing a role her whole life, I mean, that
could have been. Yeah. I thought Anna, you mentioned the actress who played her, Anna de Armas. I thought she was fantastic. To touch on,
you were watching Marilyn.
I've given a lot of criticisms, and other people are too, but I thought she was outstanding.
I would say it was nice to see. I feel like the film cast her as someone who was more than, a dumb blonde. She was very much interested in the craft of acting, and they go into that in the end. She studied under Lee Strasberg in New York. She studied the actors.
Yeah,
studio.
He's the method. Quote-unquote method acting guy, right?
Yeah. So you take any acting course, any theater course, any sort of cinema course, most likely you'll hear about Strasberg and the Stanislavski method and things like that, and these great actors who really pioneered this. And Strasberg spoke at her funeral, did her eulogy. So she wasn't just a pretty face, singing some songs and so forth. She legit could act, and she respected the craft of it as well. And I mean, you see that as well in her marriage to Arthur Miller. I mean, the noted playwright, Death of a Salesman and The Crucible. Someone as educated as he wasn't just marrying her for the pretty face. It was also the mind behind it. And I think that was a very interesting thing that they were able to bring that out.
Did you know that the IRS now requires all tax-exempt organizations to e-file their 990 tax forms? If you need to file a 990, check out expresstaxexempt.com, the quickest and easiest way to e-file your organization's 990 forms. Express Tax Exempt offers interview-style and form-based processes to accommodate 990 experts and newcomers alike. Plus, they make it easy to attach any required schedules, share the return with others in your organization for review, and they even offer live customer support. So go to expresstaxexempt.com now for the easiest 990 e-filing option.
I think you were in the middle of saying something when we cut. You were saying something about the controversial aspects of the film.
Oh, well, I was just saying that I think that she, during that Arthur Miller marriage, they showed the one miscarriage she had, but I think she had multiple miscarriages during their marriage. And I did a little bit of research, and there was no, during her autopsy, there was no evidence that she had ever had an abortion, that she did have severe endometriosis, which had caused her to have trouble carrying babies.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I did read that. And I will say,
you can tell that from
that's what they said.
You can tell that from an autopsy?
I guess so.
That's wild. Yeah, for the listener, we should have put spoiler alerts in there. But, yeah, some of the most jarring scenes, in my opinion, were there was a rape and then multiple abortion scenes in the film that give you the impression that these were practically against her will, which, I mean, that kind of thing no doubt happened in Hollywood at the time.
I'm sure.
They had certain clauses and contracts where, if an actress got pregnant during the filming of a film, they had to terminate it, or, they're just going to replace her with somebody else. And so that was, a bit jarring to watch, and the way they described it as well. And very much left to wide open interpretation as to what actually happened.
No, for sure. Although along those same lines, I did a little digging after I watched that film as well. And I kind of liked the two characters that she was hanging out with, the Gemini Robinson
people.
Jr. Yeah, yes, the Gemini. Edgar G. Robinson Jr. and Charlie Chaplin Jr. And I just thought that was neat that the two of them actually did make films, and of course they never reached the heights that their dads did, but they did make films and made a living in Hollywood. And she actually dated one of them. I can't remember which one it was at one point.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought they were just totally made up people that were involved in her life. I didn't make the connection when I was watching it.
Yeah, I did a little research, and they were real people, and they did make movies, and yeah, one of them actually did date her, although they were not a throuple like they showed in the film.
They took some wide creative license on that one.
Right.
So I think what I'm hearing you saying is like, what a lot of people had the problem with was that she was already kind of an exploited, abused person. And so the movie, while seeming to say that it wants to show this other side to her, basically just rehashes all of that abuse and exploitation, and doesn't really justify its existence, because it ends up just sort of showing those things and does that make any sense?
Yeah. I think in the end, she's just one of those fascinating people that people are going to make stories about for centuries. She's one of those people who her image has outlasted her career. Like we were talking about, not many of us have seen many of her films, but we all clearly know who she is. You know what I mean? Like, there's not many people like that where you can fully understand the the public image of a person without really understanding or really seeing most of their work. And I'm sure you go back far enough, most of her films still don't hold up, but there are some good ones in the repertoire that's behind it. I don't know. It's interesting. I think you can see it in multiple ways. It's just one of those fascinating people that just enough about, and just enough speculation that it's fascinating. You could see her as the victim of horrible circumstances. She was orphaned at a young age, and then she goes into Hollywood and is sort of, you could say she's possibly mistreated and not treated properly, but she ends up becoming the biggest star in the world. So, I don't know, is that a story of victimhood, or is that a story of someone overcoming great out to become the most recognizable face in cinema for the century?
Ended up with a very successful career, but she did pay a heavy price. So,
well, that's true. Well, and when any time you have these celebrities with these unfortunate deaths, whether it's an actor on the screen or an artist of any sort, singer, painter, anything, who has that sort of untimely young demise, it sort of adds to that mysterious aura about them, Mm-hmm. Do you think she would be as well known today if she hadn't died at 36?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, like Lauren Bacall, became, she had all the success and then just, became an older lady, and they just fade out of the spotlight and people aren't talking about them anymore, but we still talk about Marilyn, right?
It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, you have the thing of dying young. She literally never lived as an old person, so like her only image is the image of Marilyn Monroe, sort of eternally youthful there. Fun fact about her, she was born the same year as Queen Elizabeth. Huh. Talk about very different life
wow,
arcs. That's someone, she instantly feels both more modern and also someone who died 75 years ago. It was,
wow.
Well, thank you for joining us. Stick around next week and see what we talk about in the Bandit Room. Be sure to like, follow, comment, and subscribe.
Bandit Room is a production of Span Enterprises, located in sunny Rock Hill, South Carolina. We've been developing, supporting, and growing successful IRS e-filing and business management solutions since 2010. Go to spanenterprises.com now to learn more. The views and opinions expressed in the Bandit Room are those of the guests, and do not necessarily reflect or state the opinions of Span Enterprises. No information should be considered as tax, legal, or other professional advice.